The transport shuttle hummed quietly as it approached Harmony Point, the massive space station that served as the galaxy's premier research hub. Dr. Alex Carter pressed his face against the small window, watching as the station grew larger with each passing moment. The structure was beautiful in its alien design, with spiraling arms that twisted around a central core like some impossible flower, blooming in the void of space. Alex had dreamed of this moment for years. He was the first human ever accepted into the Galactic Research Institute's Advanced Xenobiology program, an achievement that had made headlines across Earth's scientific community. The selection process had been grueling, involving not just academic excellence, but also psychological evaluations to ensure he could adapt to living alongside 12 different alien species for the next 2 years. As the shuttle docked, Alex gathered his belongings and stepped into the station proper. The first thing that struck him was the variety of atmospheres being maintained in different sections. His human-compatible zone felt familiar, but through transparent barriers he could see aquatic chambers filled with blue-green water, crystalline formations that housed silicon-based life forms, and low-gravity chambers where delicate, floating creatures drifted like living clouds. His assigned quarters were modest but comfortable, designed with human physiology in mind. The bed was the right height, the gravity felt normal, and the air had that crisp, recycled taste he remembered from Earth's space stations. What surprised him was finding his roommate already there, unpacking what appeared to be a collection of smooth, colorful stones. Torvin looked up as Alex entered, and Alex had to suppress his initial shock. His roommate was roughly humanoid, but covered in what looked like soft, mossy growth that shifted from green to blue depending on the light. Large, gentle eyes dominated a face that had no visible mouth, though Alex knew from his pre-arrival briefings that Torvin's species communicated through a combination of chemical signals and telepathic impressions that the station's universal translators converted into speech. "Welcome, Alex Carter," Torvin said, his translated voice carrying a musical quality. "I am honored to share quarters with a representative from your world, though I confess I am somewhat nervous about it." Alex set down his bags and smiled. "Nervous? Why would you be nervous?" Torvin's moss-like covering shifted to a deeper blue, which Alex's cultural briefings had indicated meant embarrassment or discomfort. "It is nothing personal, of course. It is simply that your species comes from that nightmare planet everyone speaks of. I have heard the stories, and while I know you must be different from what the tales suggest, it is still somewhat frightening to think about." "Nightmare planet?" Alex asked, genuinely confused. "You mean Earth?" The blue deepened across Torvin's entire body. "Please let us not speak of it. I am sure you had to overcome great hardships to become the peaceful being you obviously are today. I do not wish to remind you of such terrible times." Alex wanted to press further, but something in Torvin's posture suggested the topic was genuinely distressing to him. Instead, Alex focused on unpacking and getting settled. Over the next few hours, as they arranged their shared living space, he learned that Torvin came from a world called Garden's Rest, where his people lived in harmony, with vast networks of plant-like organisms that provided everything they needed. There was no competition for resources, no predators, and no natural disasters. The most exciting event in their recent history had been the discovery of a new variety of fruit that grew in the southern continent. The next morning, Alex made his way to his first xenobiology lecture, held in an amphitheater that had been designed to accommodate the various physical needs of different species. The Professor Kellum was a fascinating sight to behold. Her crystalline structure caught and refracted the light in ways that created small rainbows around her as she moved. Her voice resonated through the crystal formations on her body, creating harmonics that the translators rendered as a pleasant musical tone. "Today we begin our study of extreme environments and the life forms that have adapted to survive in them," Kellum announced. "We will examine 17 different categories of hostile worlds, from the ice-locked moons of the Viridian system to the acid storms of Melchiorrid Prime." Alex settled in to take notes, excited to learn about alien ecosystems. Kellum began with, Slides showing various worlds, each more hostile than the last. There were planets where the atmosphere was pure methane, worlds where temperatures fluctuated by hundreds of degrees daily, and places where radiation levels would sterilize most known life forms within hours. Each of these worlds presents unique challenges, Kellum continued. Life on such planets must develop extraordinary adaptations merely to survive. The few species that have emerged from such environments display characteristics that can seem almost impossibly resilient to those of us from more stable worlds. Alex noticed that several of his classmates were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. A few had even changed colors or adjusted their postures in ways that suggested distress. He wondered what could be causing such reactions to what seemed like a straightforward scientific lecture. Kellum's presentation continued through various categories of hostile environments, and Alex found himself increasingly fascinated by the ingenuity of life in adapting to extreme conditions. But then, something strange happened. As Kellum reached what should have been the final category in her classification system, she paused and seemed to skip over something. "And that concludes our overview of survivable extreme environments," she said, though Alex was certain she had mentioned 17 categories and had only covered 16. A student near the front, a being that looked like a cross between an octopus and a butterfly, raised one of its delicate appendages. "Professor Kellum, what about Category 12 environments? You mentioned 17 categories but only showed us 16. The entire amphitheater fell silent. Alex noticed that several students had actually moved slightly away from him, though he couldn't understand why. Kellum's crystalline structure seemed to dim slightly, and when she spoke, her harmonics carried what the translator rendered as reluctance. "Category 12 environments are beyond the scope of this course," she said carefully. "They represent conditions so extreme, so utterly hostile to life, that they fall outside normal academic discussion. The few worlds in this category have produced life forms so adapted to impossibly harsh conditions that they challenge our understanding of what constitutes a viable ecosystem." Alex raised his hand. "Could you give us just one example? I'm really curious about what kind of environment could be that extreme." The silence that followed was profound. Alex became aware that every being in the amphitheater was now staring at him, and their expressions ranged from shock to something that looked almost like pity. Kellum's crystal structure had dimmed to barely a glow. "Perhaps," she said very quietly, "we should discuss this after class, Dr. Carter." The research library on Harmony Point was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Floating data crystals drifted through the air like luminous jellyfish, each containing vast databases of information from across the galaxy. Students of various species sat at stations designed for their particular physiologies, accessing knowledge through methods ranging from direct neural interface to chemical absorption. Alex had been unable to stop thinking about Professor Kellum's strange reaction to his question about Category 12 worlds. After class, she had simply said that some topics required more preparation before they could be properly discussed, and suggested he spend time with his fellow students to better understand the galactic perspective on extreme environments. Now, 3 days later, he found himself sitting with his study group in one of the library's common areas. The group consisted of 6 beings from different worlds, and Alex had grown comfortable with their weekly discussions about their coursework. There was Nira, whose aquatic species breathed liquid and communicated through bioluminescent patterns on her skin. Beside her sat Quillen, a tall, thin being whose people had evolved from herd animals on a world with low gravity. The others represented equally diverse evolutionary paths, but all shared one thing in common. They came from what Alex was beginning to understand were remarkably stable, peaceful worlds. "I have been thinking about Professor Kellum's lecture," Alex said, setting down his tablet. "About those Category 12 worlds she mentioned. Has anyone here actually studied them?" The reaction was immediate and startling. Nira's bioluminescent patterns flashed in what Alex had learned indicated extreme distress. Quillen actually stood up and took several steps backward. The others showed various signs of discomfort, from color changes to defensive postures. Alex, said Devrin, whose crystalline structure was similar to Professor Kalam's, why would you want to know about such places? Surely your own world's history has taught you enough about suffering. My world's history? Alex asked, genuinely confused. What does Earth have to do with Category 12 worlds? The silence that followed was so complete that Alex could hear the hum of the station's environmental systems. Every member of his study group was staring at him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Finally, Nira's patterns shifted to a deep blue that Alex had learned meant profound sadness. Alex, she said softly, Earth is the Category 12 world. It is the reason that classification exists. Alex felt as if the station's artificial gravity had suddenly failed. That's impossible. Earth is just a normal planet. Sure, we have weather and some natural disasters, but it's not some kind of hell world. Quillen had slowly returned to his seat, but he remained visibly tense. Alex, I think perhaps you do not understand how the rest of the galaxy views your homeworld. To us, Earth represents the absolute extreme of hostile environments. It is the standard by which all other dangerous worlds are measured. But that doesn't make sense, Alex protested. Billions of people live on Earth. We have cities, farms, forests, full of life. How can it be considered the most dangerous world? In the galaxy? Devrin's crystal structure pulsed with what Alex recognized as deep concern. Perhaps it would help if we showed you how Earth appears in our databases. But Alex, you must prepare yourself. What we are about to share may be disturbing to you. Nira activated a holographic display that materialized in the center of their seating area. The image that appeared showed Earth from space, beautiful and blue against the black of the void. But as data began to overlay the image, Alex began to see his homeworld through alien eyes. Your planet's atmosphere? Nira began, her pattern shifting to indicate she was accessing technical data, contains 21% oxygen. This is a concentration so high that it would be toxic to most galactic species. Oxygen is a highly reactive gas that corrodes most materials and poses extreme fire hazards. On most worlds, oxygen concentrations above 8% are considered lethal. Alex stared at the display. But we need oxygen to breathe. Yes, said Quillen, and that fact alone makes your species remarkable. But it gets worse. Your planet experiences what you call weather. This means that acidic liquid falls from the sky on a regular basis. You mean rain? Alex asked incredulously. Rain? Yes, Devrin confirmed, his crystal structure dimming with what Alex now recognized as distress. Water that has absorbed atmospheric chemicals and falls with enough force to cause physical damage. On most worlds, such events would be considered catastrophic environmental emergencies. On Earth, they happen regularly, and life has somehow adapted to survive them. The holographic display began showing various weather phenomena from Earth. What Alex saw as a normal thunderstorm was annotated with data showing electromagnetic discharges powerful enough to kill most galactic life forms, wind speeds that would be considered weapons grade on other worlds, and precipitation rates that would cause mass extinctions elsewhere. Your star, Nira continued, bombards your planet's surface with radiation at levels that would sterilize most worlds. The fact that Earth's life forms not only survive this, but actually require it for their biological processes is almost incomprehensible to us. Alex watched as the display showed Earth's day-night cycle, something he had never given much thought. But the data overlay revealed that the temperature differences between day and night, which seemed mild to him, represented swings that would kill most galactic species. But surely you understand that Earth has a biosphere, Alex said weakly. We have ecosystems, predators and prey, evolution through natural selection. The moment he said predators and prey, every member of his study group recoiled as if he had shouted something obscene. Quillen's large eyes went wide with what could only be described as horror. Alex, he whispered, are you saying that on your world, life forms intentionally kill and consume other life forms? Well, yes, that's how ecosystems work. The food chain, survival of the fittest, natural selection through competition for resources. Neera's bioluminescent patterns had gone completely dark, something Alex had never seen before. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible through the translator. On my world, all life exists in symbiotic harmony. Plants provide nutrients. Herbivores maintain plant populations through gentle pruning, and all waste is recycled through biological processes that benefit the entire ecosystem. The concept of one life form ending another's existence for sustenance is the most horrifying thing I can imagine. But evolution requires pressure, Alex said, trying to understand their perspective. Without challenges to overcome, how do species improve and adapt? Improve? Devrin asked, his crystal structure now pulsing with rapid, agitated rhythms. Life does not need to improve, Alex. It simply needs to exist in harmony with its environment. On stable worlds like ours, evolution works toward greater cooperation and mutual benefit. The idea that life must struggle and compete and fight to survive is a nightmare we cannot comprehend. Alex looked around at his study group, beginning to understand the gulf between their experiences and his own. So when you think about Earth, you see a world where everything is trying to kill everything else, where the environment itself is hostile to life, where survival requires constant struggle against impossible odds? Yes, they said in unison, and the word carried such weight of sorrow that Alex felt his chest tighten. And when I think about your worlds, Alex said slowly, I see places where life has become so comfortable and stable that it never had to develop the ability to adapt to change or overcome challenges. The group stared at him for a long moment, and Alex realized he had stumbled upon something profound. What they saw as Earth's curse, he was beginning to see as humanity's greatest gift. The restricted section of the Galactic Archives required special permission to access, and Alex had spent the better part of a week convincing the station's administrative council that his research into Category 12 worlds was legitimate academic inquiry. The irony was not lost on him that he needed permission to study his own planet, now, alone in a sterile white chamber deep within the station's core. Alex sat before a massive holographic interface that contained the galaxy's most comprehensive threat assessment database. The data crystals floating around him pulsed with ominous red light, indicating the dangerous nature of the information they contained. Display Earth classification file, Alex said to the system. The hologram flickered to life, and Alex found himself staring at an official document that made his blood run cold. At the top, in symbols that the translator rendered in stark, bold text, were the words Galactic Threat Assessment Classification, Category 12 Deathworld Absolute Quarantine Recommended. What followed was a detailed analysis that read like a horror story. The report began with a summary that described Earth as a world so fundamentally hostile to life that the existence of any biological activity, let alone intelligent species, represents a statistical impossibility that challenges our understanding of evolutionary biology. Alex scrolled through section after section, each more bewildering than the last. The atmospheric analysis described Earth's oxygen-rich environment as a corrosive gas mixture that would cause rapid cellular breakdown in 97% of known galactic species. The weather patterns were classified as continuous environmental warfare against all surface life. The report noted that Earth experienced regular bombardment by electromagnetic storms of devastating intensity and frequent seismic events that would constitute planetary emergencies on any civilized world. But it was the biological assessment that truly stunned Alex. The report described Earth's ecosystem as a complex network of aggressive life forms engaged in constant warfare for survival. It noted that Earth's evolutionary pressures had created impossibly resilient organisms with pain tolerance and healing capabilities far beyond galactic norms. One section made Alex laugh out loud, despite the serious nature of the document. Under planetary hazards, the report listed seasonal temperature variations sufficient to cause mass extinction events and regular precipitation of chemical-laden liquid from atmospheric formations. What they were describing as apocalyptic conditions were simply summer and winter, rain and snow. The section on human capabilities was even more remarkable. The report described humans as having anomalous psychological resilience, allowing them to function normally under stress conditions that would cause complete mental breakdown in most galactic species. It noted that humans possessed disturbing adaptability to changing conditions and the ability to derive sustenance from a wide variety of organic matter, including deceased biological entities. Alex realized they were talking about humans eating meat, something so normal to him that he had never considered how it might appear to species that had evolved on worlds where such behavior was unnecessary. As he continued reading, Alex began to understand just how different Earth was from the rest of the galaxy. The report included comparative data from other inhabited worlds, and the differences were staggering. Most galactic civilizations had evolved on planets with stable climates that varied by no more than a few degrees throughout their entire year. Weather consisted of gentle air circulation that helped distribute nutrients and moisture. Natural disasters were so rare that most species had no words for concepts like earthquakes, hurricanes, or volcanic eruptions. The evolutionary pressures that had shaped humanity were completely foreign to most galactic life. While other species had evolved toward cooperation and harmony with their environments, humans had been forced to develop traits that the report described as survival characteristics, typically associated with apex predator species. The document noted that humans showed unusual aggression in defense of territory and resources, and pack behavior patterns that allow coordinated response to threats. What struck Alex most was how the report's authors seemed baffled by humanity's success. One section read, "Despite theoretical impossibility of complex civilization developing under such hostile conditions, human society has achieved technological advancement comparable to standard galactic civilizations, while maintaining behavioral patterns adapted to extreme survival scenarios." Alex accessed video files that have been included in the database. Recordings made by galactic survey teams who had observed Earth from a safe distance. He watched footage of a thunderstorm over the Pacific Ocean and listened to the commentary from the alien observers. The electromagnetic discharges are occurring every few seconds, one voice noted with what sounded like horrified fascination. Each blast contains enough energy to power a small city, yet the planet's surface life continues to function normally. How is this possible? Another file showed footage of a forest after what appeared to be a minor wildfire. To Alex, it looked like a normal process of ecological renewal, but the alien commentary described it as evidence of the planet's active hostility toward its own biosphere. The most disturbing files were those that showed human activities. Alex watched security footage of a construction site on Earth where workers were operating heavy machinery in what appeared to be a light rainstorm. The alien observer's commentary was filled with disbelief. The beings are continuing their activities. Despite the ongoing chemical precipitation, one voice noted, they appear to be wearing only minimal protective covering. This level of exposure to environmental hazards should be fatal within minutes, yet they show no signs of distress. Another file showed humans swimming in an ocean, and Alex had to pause the recording because the commentary was so surreal. The observers were describing the ocean as a vast body of corrosive liquid containing dissolved minerals and organic compounds, and expressing amazement that humans could survive direct contact with this hostile chemical environment. As Alex continued, through the files he began to see a pattern. Everything that made Earth dangerous in the eyes of galactic civilization was something that had made humans stronger. The harsh environment had forced humanity to develop incredible resilience. The unpredictable weather had taught them to plan for contingencies. The competitive ecosystem had made them innovative and adaptable, but the most revealing section of the database was labeled Theoretical Implications. Here, galactic scientists had tried to understand what kind of species could emerge from a world like Earth. Their conclusions were both frightening and fascinating. Any intelligent species surviving to technological advancement on a Category 12 world would necessarily possess survival characteristics, so extreme as to make them potentially dangerous to galactic stability, the report stated. Such beings would be accustomed to solving problems through force when necessary, adapting rapidly to changing conditions, and viewing resource competition as normal behavior. The report went on to speculate that deathworld species might be psychologically incapable of peaceful coexistence and would likely attempt to expand their territorial control through aggressive means. It recommended that any contact with Earth should be avoided until proper containment protocols could be established. Alex sat back in his chair, finally understanding why his presence at the Institute had caused such concern. The other species weren't just afraid of his planet, they were afraid of him. Everything about humanity, from their resilience to their adaptability to their problem-solving abilities, had been shaped by conditions that most of the galaxy considered impossible to survive. But as he looked at the data from this new perspective, Alex began to see something the report's authors had missed. Yes, Earth had made humans tough and adaptable, but it had also taught them something else: how to work together in the face of impossible challenges. Every human achievement, from agriculture to space travel, had required cooperation and mutual support in the face of adversity. The galaxy saw Earth as a world that created monsters, but Alex was beginning to realize it had created something else entirely, a species that could thrive where others would perish, not through violence or aggression, but through the kind of resilience and creativity that only came from facing the impossible and refusing to give up. Professor Kellum's private laboratory was a marvel of crystalline architecture, with geometric formations that seemed to grow directly from the station's hull. Each surface caught and refracted light in ways that created an environment of constant, shifting beauty. Alex had been surprised when she contacted him personally, requesting a private meeting to discuss matters of mutual research interest. "Dr. Carter," Kellum said as Alex entered, her crystal structure pulsing with what he had learned indicated deep thought, "I have been monitoring your access to the threat assessment database. Your research into Category 12 world classifications has not gone unnoticed." Alex felt a moment of concern. "I hope I haven't violated any protocols. I received proper authorization for my research." "You have done nothing wrong," Kellum assured him, her harmonics carrying what sounded like amusement. "In fact, your unique perspective has attracted the attention of a very select research group. We have been studying deathworld adaptations for several years now, trying to understand how life could possibly thrive under such extreme conditions." She gestured to a comfortable chair that had been designed for human physiology. "The Galactic Council has become increasingly interested in understanding resilience and adaptability. As we expand into new regions of space, we encounter conditions that challenge our traditional approaches to colonization and exploration. Your species represents the only known example of intelligent life that has successfully adapted to truly hostile conditions." Alex settled into the chair, intrigued. "What kind of research are you conducting?" Kellum's structure brightened considerably. "We have developed a series of assessments designed to measure stress tolerance, adaptability, and problem-solving capabilities under adverse conditions. These tests represent the absolute limits of what any galactic species should theoretically be able to endure. We would like you to participate as our first Deathworld subject. What exactly would these tests involve?" "Nothing that should be challenging for someone from your background," Kellum replied. "We will simulate various stress conditions and environmental hazards, then observe your physiological and psychological responses. The data will help us understand how deathworld adaptations function at the biological level." Alex agreed, curious to see how his normal human capabilities would measure against galactic standards. The testing facility was located in one of the station's research wings, a sterile environment filled with monitoring equipment and environmental control systems. Dr. Yilden, the project's lead researcher, was a fascinating being whose body seemed to be composed of flowing liquid contained within a transparent membrane. Her species communicated through changes in color and viscosity, creating patterns that the universal translator converted into speech with remarkable precision. We will begin with basic stress response evaluation, Dr. Yilden explained, her form shifting to a calm blue-green. This first test will simulate environmental conditions that represent the upper limits of survivability for most galactic species. Alex was fitted with monitoring equipment and placed in an environmental chamber. The first test began with what the researchers called extreme temperature variation. The chamber's temperature dropped to what felt like a cool autumn day on Earth, then rose to the warmth of a mild summer afternoon. Outside the chamber, Alex could see the research team staring at their instruments with expressions of disbelief. Dr. Yilden's form had shifted to a rapidly swirling pattern of yellow and orange that indicated intense excitement. Subject shows no physiological stress response, she announced to her team. Heart rate and brain activity remain completely normal. This should be impossible. The next test involved what they called hostile illumination conditions. The chambers lighting dimmed to what Alex would consider normal indoor lighting levels, then shifted through various color spectrums. To Alex, it felt like moving from a brightly lit room to a cozy evening setting. Again, the research team seemed astounded by his complete lack of stress response. Alex was beginning to realize that what constituted extreme conditions for most galactic species was well within the normal range of human experience. The environmental testing continued with simulated atmospheric pressure variations that felt like riding an elevator in a tall building, electromagnetic exposure that was less intense than standing near a microwave oven, and acoustic stress conditions that sounded like a moderately busy city street. After each test, the research team's excitement grew more visible. Dr. Yilden's form had shifted to patterns Alex had never seen before, cycling through rapid color changes that indicated she was processing completely unexpected data. "We must move to the crisis simulation protocols," she announced. "Standard environmental testing is producing no measurable stress response." The crisis simulations were designed to test problem-solving abilities under pressure. Alex was presented with scenarios that would challenge any galactic citizen's ability to think clearly and act decisively. The first scenario involved a simulated system failure in a spacecraft where multiple critical systems had stopped functioning simultaneously. Alex was given a toolkit of basic materials and asked to devise solutions that would restore life support, communications, and navigation within a limited time frame. What the researchers considered an impossible challenge, Alex approached with the kind of practical thinking that any human with technical training would apply. He bypassed damaged circuits using spare wire, created a simple communications array using basic electronic components, and improvised a navigation system using the spacecraft's emergency equipment. The research team watched in stunned silence as Alex completed the entire simulation in less than half the allotted time, using methods that were both elegant and effective. "How did you know to cross-connect those systems?" Dr. Yilden asked, her form now a swirling mass of colors that indicated complete bewilderment. "It's just basic problem-solving," Alex replied. "When one approach doesn't work, you try another. When you don't have the right tool, you make one from what's available. When systems fail, you find ways to work around the failures." The simulations became increasingly complex, but Alex found each one easier than the last. Scenarios that should have required weeks of careful planning and specialized equipment, he solved with improvised solutions and creative thinking. Problems that would cause most galactic species to shut down in panic, he approached with calm analysis and practical action. Dr. Yilden's research notes, which Alex was allowed to review, provided fascinating insight into how his responses appeared to galactic observers. She had written, "Subject demonstrates unprecedented ability to remain cognitively functional under extreme stress, where other species show deteriorating decision-making capabilities as stress increases. Subject actually appears to become more focused and creative. This represents a complete inversion of expected stress response patterns." Another note read, "Subject's problem-solving methodology appears to be based on assumption that any problem can be solved given sufficient creativity, and determination. This psychological framework is unknown among galactic species, who typically seek to avoid problems rather than actively engage with them. But it was the final assessment that truly revealed how different humans were from the rest of galactic civilization. Dr. Yilden had concluded, subject does not merely tolerate adverse conditions, subject thrives under pressure. Stress appears to enhance rather than degrade cognitive and physical performance. This suggests that deathworld species are not just survivors, but are actually antifragile, becoming stronger and more capable when faced with challenges. As the testing concluded, Alex found himself surrounded by a research team that looked at him with a mixture of awe and something approaching reverence. What they had designed as ultimate stress tests he had experienced as interesting puzzles. What they considered impossible challenges he had solved with the kind of practical thinking that every human learned growing up on Earth. Dr. Carter? Professor Kellum said as the session ended, you have helped us understand something remarkable. Your species does not just survive in conditions that would destroy us, you excel in them. You have shown us that what we consider the worst possible circumstances might actually be the best possible training for dealing with an unpredictable universe. Alex looked around at the researchers, beginning to understand that his participation in their study had revealed something neither side had expected. The galaxy's most dangerous world had not created monsters, it had created a species uniquely equipped to handle whatever challenges the universe might present. The Grand Assembly Hall of Harmony Point had never hosted a presentation quite like this one. Representatives from 47 different species filled the amphitheater, their varied forms creating a stunning display of galactic diversity. Alex stood at the podium, looking out at crystalline beings that refracted light into rainbows, aquatic species in specialized environmental suits, and dozens of other life forms he was still learning to identify. 3 months had passed since his testing with Dr. Yilden's research team, and word of the results had spread throughout the galactic scientific community. What had started as Alex's personal quest to understand his planet's reputation had evolved into something much larger, a fundamental reassessment of how the galaxy viewed both Earth and humanity. Honored colleagues, Alex began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's translation systems, I stand before you today not as a representative of the most dangerous world in the galaxy, but as someone who has come to understand that danger and strength are often the same thing viewed from different perspectives. The presentation screen behind him displayed an image of Earth from space, the same beautiful blue marble that had inspired wonder in humans for generations. But now Alex understood how differently his audience saw that same image. When you look at my homeworld, you see a place of impossible hazards, Alex continued. You see an atmosphere that would corrode your bodies, weather that would destroy your civilizations, and evolutionary pressures that would drive your species to extinction. You are not wrong about any of these things. Earth is exactly as dangerous. As your databases indicate, a ripple of discomfort passed through the audience. Several beings adjusted their positions or showed other signs of unease at this confirmation of their fears. But I have learned something during my time here that I believe will change how we understand the relationship between adversity and advancement. The conditions that make Earth lethal to most galactic life are the same conditions that made humanity what we are today. Alex activated the holographic display, showing data from his testing sessions with Dr. Yilden's team. When your researchers tested my stress responses, they discovered something remarkable. Humans do not just survive under pressure. We actually perform better when faced with challenges. Our cognitive abilities improve when circumstances become difficult. Our creativity increases when resources become scarce. Our cooperation strengthens when threats emerge. The display showed comparative brain scans, highlighting how Alex's neural activity had actually increased during the most challenging parts of the testing. This is not because humans are inherently superior to other species. It is because Earth taught us that the universe is unpredictable, and the only way to thrive in an unpredictable universe is to become adaptable. Alex could see that his audience was beginning to engage with the concepts he was presenting. Torvin, his roommate, was leaning forward with intense interest. Professor Kellum's crystalline structure was pulsing with the rhythms Alex had learned indicated deep thought. Consider what Earth's challenges gave humanity, Alex said, advancing to his next slide. Seasonal weather variations taught us to plan ahead and store resources for difficult times. Natural disasters taught us that individual survival depends on community cooperation. Predation taught us to be aware of our environment and to develop tools for protection. Competition for resources taught us innovation and efficiency. The presentation showed examples of human achievements, from agriculture and architecture to space travel and communication technology. Every major advancement in human civilization can be traced back to our need to overcome some challenge that Earth presented to us. We learned to grow food because wild resources were unreliable. We built shelters because the weather was dangerous. We developed medicine because injuries and illnesses were common. We created art and music and literature because beauty and meaning became essential for psychological survival in a harsh world. Alex paused to let this sink in before continuing. But the most important thing Earth taught us was that problems are not obstacles to be avoided, they are puzzles to be solved. When a human encounters a challenge, our first instinct is not to retreat or seek help from higher authorities. Our first instinct is to ask, how can I fix this? The display now showed footage from Alex's crisis simulations, demonstrating the practical problem-solving approach that had amazed the research team. This is not aggression or recklessness. This is what happens when a species evolves in an environment where adaptation and innovation are the primary survival strategies. Alex looked out at his audience and saw that the fear and discomfort that had initially greeted his presentation was being replaced by something else: curiosity. I have learned about your worlds during my time here, Alex said, his tone becoming more personal. Garden worlds where resources are abundant and cooperation comes naturally. Ocean worlds where currents carry nutrients to every corner of the ecosystem. Crystal worlds where energy flows freely through living mineral networks. These are beautiful places that have created beautiful civilizations based on harmony and mutual support. He gestured to include the entire audience. But as we explore deeper into space, we are discovering that the galaxy is not composed entirely of garden worlds. There are regions where conditions are harsh, where resources are scarce, where the unexpected is common. These are places where your traditional approaches to problem-solving may not be sufficient. The display showed images from recent galactic exploration missions, including several failed colonization attempts on worlds that had proven too challenging for standard galactic technology and methodology. This is where I believe humanity can offer something valuable to the galactic community. Not as conquerors or competitors, but as partners who bring a different set of skills to shared challenges. We are not better than you. We are simply different in ways that might be useful. Alex advanced to his final slides, showing proposals he had developed over the past weeks. I propose an exchange program. Humans can work with galactic species to develop crisis management protocols, adaptive problem-solving techniques, and resilience training. In return, we can learn from your civilizations how to build sustainable harmony, how to create systems that promote cooperation rather than competition, and how to maintain peace and stability once challenges have been overcome. The audience was now fully engaged, with many species showing signs of intense interest. Alex could see discussions breaking out in small groups throughout the amphitheater. The galaxy has spent generations avoiding the conditions that created humanity. But those conditions still exist out there in unexplored space. Rather than fearing what Earth made us, we should recognize it as preparation for challenges we haven't encountered yet. Alex's presentation concluded with an image that combined views of dozens of different worlds, the garden worlds of his audience and the harsh frontier worlds where galactic expansion was struggling. Together, we can explore places that neither humans nor galactic species could handle alone. Your wisdom and our adaptability, your harmony and our resilience, your peace and our problem-solving abilities. As Alex stepped back from the podium, the audience erupted in the closest thing to applause that such a diverse group could manage. Crystalline beings chimed in harmonic patterns, aquatic species flashed brilliant bioluminescent displays, and dozens of other species showed appreciation in their own unique ways. Professor Kellum approached the podium, her structure glowing, brighter than Alex had ever seen it. Dr. Carter has presented us with a remarkable paradigm shift. Perhaps it is time we stopped viewing deathworlds as places to be avoided and started seeing them as laboratories that produce exactly the kinds of capabilities we need for true galactic expansion. Over the following weeks, Alex found himself busier than he had ever been. Requests for consultations came from across the galaxy. Colonization teams wanted advice on handling unpredictable conditions. Research stations requested training in crisis management. Even peaceful garden world civilizations began asking for guidance on developing resilience in case their stable conditions ever changed. But the most meaningful response came from his fellow students. Torvin approached him one evening as Alex was reviewing proposals for the new exchange program. "Alex," his roommate said, his moss-like covering shifting to the warm golden color that indicated happiness, "I have been thinking about what you said in your presentation, about how challenges make species stronger." "What about it?" Alex asked. "My people have lived in perfect harmony for so long that we have forgotten how to adapt when things change. Recently, our world experienced its first major climate shift in 1,000 years, and we had no idea how to respond. We nearly panicked at the first sign of environmental uncertainty." Torvin paused, his coloring shifting to the deep blue of serious thought. "I would like to learn from you. Not because I want to become dangerous like we thought humans were, but because I want my people to be ready for whatever changes the universe might bring." Alex smiled, understanding finally clicking into place. "That's exactly what this is about. Torvin, not making anyone dangerous, but making everyone capable." 3 months later, Alex received a message that changed everything. The Galactic Council had approved the first deep space colonization mission to a Class 8 hostile world, and they were requesting human consultation for the entire project. What had once been considered humanity's greatest shame, their origin on a death world, was now being recognized as their greatest contribution to galactic civilization. As Alex prepared for his new role, he looked out through his quarters viewport at the stars beyond Harmony Point. Somewhere out there were worlds that would challenge every species in the galaxy, conditions that would require all of their combined strengths to overcome. Earth had prepared humanity for those challenges, not by making them monsters, but by teaching them that there was no problem that couldn't be solved, no challenge that couldn't be met, and no situation that couldn't be improved through determination, creativity, and cooperation. The most dangerous world in the galaxy had become the galaxy's greatest teacher. And Alex realized that this was only the beginning of what humans and their galactic partners could accomplish together. The universe was vast and full of challenges, but for the first time in galactic history, they were ready for whatever came next.